there was a case towards the end of this past year also, again, where we've picked up 2 Chinese intel agents who were busy trying to bribe what they thought was an asset who could give them information about the government's prosecution of Huawei. It turns out it was an informant working for the FBI, thank goodness. But, these guys simply working to find assets who could tell them what is the U.S. government, what's the DOJ doing to prosecute Huawei. I mean, that's, again, now do you think we can operate in China in the same way? Well, no. It's a much more restrictive environment. So we have to be more clever, more creative in the way that we gather information about China's intel and plans and intentions than they do.
Isn't there also a difference in the way they've infiltrated the universities and the education system in the United States versus what we have over there?
Yeah. The university system here is a really good trolling ground for them, and it's been that way for decades. And look, there's this case that I mentioned where they just sentenced this fellow we extradited. He was using the university system, going out and finding both private sector employees and also people in academics, right, who were engaged in business related to aviation or whatever, to entice them. And again, and it tends to follow a pattern, right? If you're a Chinese American or a Taiwanese American and you're approached by someone who spends time buttering you up and telling you how smart you are, and we sure could use you to come over to China to give a presentation, you might want to think about that, right? There's a reason for it, and yet. They're very good at what they do. Look, this guy, Zhu, when he would take somebody over or he would have somebody come over to give a presentation, Ministry of State Security under the guise of, academics or whatever would take these people out to dinner. Meanwhile, they'd bang up his hotel room, copy his laptop, do everything that you would imagine they would do. That's what they do. And again, I know people are going to disagree with this and they're always going to argue about this, but I don't. And maybe that's because I'm simple. I never viewed there as a moral equivalency between their operations and our operations. We have firewalls. We have limits. We have things that we can't do, right? And they don't. If it works, it works, right? And if they think it's got potential to work as an operation, then they'll do it. Same with the Russians and others.
I think the real fear over here is the only way we can compete with them is to do what they do with our people.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that one of the things that we do is try to harden our defenses, right? Part of that is making people aware of it. And, FBA, they've been taking a kick in the ass for a while now because of, the potential for playing politics. But the Bureau has done, some things really very well. And one of them is in this counterintelligence area, right? They spend a lot of time talking or trying to talk to private sector companies about how do you improve your security posture against these threats. And that was not something they did before. So it's a relatively new initiative. They go out and they talk and they try to share best practices. It's not necessarily a two-way conversation, right? It's not like the company is getting inside information from the Bureau about investigations or whatever. But they're trying. And the reason for that is the same reason why from a technical perspective, you harden your IT systems. It's because you got to arm everybody. Our critical infrastructure is owned in the U.S. 80% by private companies. 80%, right? So we can talk about, trying to improve our security posture because our infrastructure, again, that's it, right? You talk about these things like I said, where's the potential for conflict in 2023? Russia, Ukraine, China. Well, an attack on U.S. infrastructure. That's right up there at the very top. And so, you have to do what you can, but when 80% of the critical infrastructure is owned by private companies, you have to work with the private companies. You have to go out and create a dialogue, create an awareness, and that's always been a problem in the past. So they're trying to do that. And then, yes, we try to be better at collecting information on what the hostile nation states are doing against us. But, that's where I draw a line. I'm always willing to say, okay, maybe there was something there. Maybe I haven't seen evidence to say absolutely not, so maybe there was a conspiracy. Maybe all those things, that's fine. But I always draw a line at saying, fuck you, we need the intel community. We need them to be apolitical. It should always be the case. But we need them to be out there and aggressive and proactive in defending national security interests. And, not going to shift off that line.
Well, one of the things that a lot of people get scared of when it comes to overstepping boundaries is some of the shit that we hear, like with the FBI, like the governor of Michigan thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Where there was 14 people involved and 12 of them involved in this kidnapping plot. 12 of them were FBI informants. That seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, entrapment is that's a different fucking bucket there. That's
Is that just a function of them trying to get something done? And you give people autonomy, you let them make their own decisions, and then they do something that a lot of people would feel like is entrapment. And these guys who got arrested, who were doing long bids, one of them was saying that it was all just fantasy. He's an idiot. He wasn't really interested in it at all, but they organized it. They instigated it. They designed it.
Kept calling about it. Yeah. I mean, I think the way that you avoid problems typically is by having your frontline managers, right, being very experienced in asking questions and stress testing every potential operation and activity or investigation. And I can't speak to that one because I wasn't in the bureau and don't know, but I do know that if you don't have management at pretty much every level of the organization, whatever organization it is, that stress tests these things and says, okay, why do you think this? Why is that important? Who told you this? What is the purpose? Then it's got the potential to spin out of control. And part of it then becomes, okay, you've got some smart prosecuting attorney out there and thinks, hey, this is gonna be great, right? This is high profile. Look at that. And so then they run with it. And every investigation needs to be built on a very sound foundation, right? If you start an investigation with an idea like, I bet these guys might be interested in it. You've got to have evidence at the very bottom. Otherwise, it's just sitting on this pile of sand, right? So I think that's, sometimes where these things go awry because there's such a desire to, develop that opportunity or that case, right? That people forget to say, well, how did this even get started? What was the first piece of evidence or what was the first thread?
Right.
Let's go back to that and look. Right. I mean,
right. Was it the idea of the 2 people that are being prosecuted, or was it the idea of the 12 people that instigated it?
Yeah.